Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha's V'eschanon. The question of the week is, what can we do to bring about the redemption? So in this week's Torah portion, Parsha's V'eschanon, at the end of the Torah portion we have the Haftorah, and we know every single Haftorah is usually directly associated with the Torah portion, and there are times when it has a specific connection to the time that we're in. So the last three Haftorahs, because they were in the period of the 3 weeks of the mourning, so they were associated with the mourning of the destruction. Shalosh to Puranisa. This week we're starting after Tisha B'Av. It's the first Shabbos after Tisha B'Av. Hashem starts comforting the Jewish people. So it's called Shivat and Achemta, the 7 Haftorahs of comfort. And the Avudraham says that these 7 Haftorahs of comfort is a conversation between Hashem and the Jewish people, and the Jewish people and Hashem. So the first Haftorah this week, Hashem tells the prophets, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami, go out and comfort the Jewish people. The Jewish people tell back the prophets, Vatoimer Tzion Azavani Hashem. Hashem is comforting us. Hashem forsook us. He let us go. So the prophet goes back to Hashem and it says, the Jewish people are not allowing themselves to be comforted. So Hashem says in the 4th Haftorah, I, myself, Hashem, I'm going to comfort the Jewish people. So Rebbe asks a simple question. If we're going from in progress, where Hashem is sending a little comfort through the prophets, and then eventually Hashem says, I am comforting. So it makes sense. Anoichi says twice. Hashem is coming with all the troops to comfort us. But if it's only starting the process in this week's Torah portion of Nachamu, so why does it say twice Nachamu? So the Rebbe explains, because you find interesting in the Jewish alphabets, there are 5 letters that are double. Meaning it says you have a regular letter, and then you have a letter the way to the end of the word. So for example, you have the Chaf, which has a Chaf and a final Chaf. You have the Mem, which has a regular Mem and the final Mem, the one at the end of the word. You have the same thing with the Nun, the same thing with the Pei, and the same thing with the Tzaddik. Now all these, because they're double, so we know in the world of Kabbalah, there's something which is called Memali Kalalmin. There's regular light that fits the vessel, but then there's powerful light, Soiviv Kalalmin. Once you're dealing with double, you have not only double, twice as much, but you have infinitely greater power and infinitely greater blessings. Every one of these double letters is associated with redemption. So the Chaf was the way Abraham was redeemed from Ur Kasdim, where it says Lech Lecha, you have the letter Chaf there. The Mem is the one that Yitzchok was redeemed from the Plishtim. You have the Mem in the verse of his redemption. The Nun is the redemption of Yaakov from Esav. The Pei is the redemption the Jewish people had when they left Egypt. And the Tzaddik is the redemption that we're going to have when we leave Golus when Mashiach comes. Tzemach Shmoi. So the Rebbe says, you see clearly, when it comes to redemption, it's all about double. One is not going to do it. It has to be exponential double. It has to be huge energies that have to take us out. So therefore, since Hashem is coming to comfort the Jewish people, and even though, yes, he's sending the prophets, it can't just be Nachamu. It has to be Nachamu. It has to be a double comfort. Because double is comfort. So the Rebbe asks, okay, if that's the case, so where is the redemption? Well, we're still in Gullus. So the Rebbe says, yes, maybe we're physically in Gullus, but spiritually we've been taken out of Gullus. What's lacking is the physical going out of Gullus. Now, how do we physically go out of Gullus? The Rebbe says, if you want to go out of Gullus, you have to prepare yourself in the same way that you're going to be taking out. Just like you're going to be taking out by double, so the same thing also, the way you prepare yourself is also in a double way. What is the double way? So the Rebbe says, what's the name of this week's Torah portion? It's called V'eschanon. Now, right away, Rashi asks, why V'eschanon? Moshe Rabbeinu is praying to Hashem. It should say, V'espalel, he's praying. Why V'eschanon? Because again, he wanted redemption. So he couldn't have just asked for a simple prayer, because prayer is din, judgment. Either you deserve it or you don't deserve it. Therefore he came along and he asked V'eschanon. He pleaded with Hashem. Hashem should take him out from Gullus, which is basically a double expression that Hashem should allow him to leave and to go into the land of Israel. And based on this, Rebbe says, if we want to go out of Gullus in a real way, so what does it say in this week's Torah portion? Hashem tells us we should do the mitzvahs of Hashem, and the Torah says, "Ve'asisa hayosher v'hatoiv." You should do what's good and what's straight. So Rebbe asks, if it's yashar, it's toiv. If it's right, then it's good. And if it's good, it's right. Why the double expression? So Rashi says, what is Yosher B'Toiv? Rashi says it's reference to Pshara. It's reference to a compromise, where you do Lefnim Asher Zadin. So in other words, if you want to do what Hashem wants, and you want to have redemption, you have to do the Avodah of Eschanan. It should be a gift. You should do more than you want, more than you would normally do. You have to do pshar. You have to be willing to compromise this judgment. You can say, listen, I don't have to do it. True. So maybe you're correct. But if you want to have redemption, if you want to go out of the box, and you want great gifts from a double expression, that's when you do lefnim asher zadim. Because when a person does compromise, not only are you doing judgment, but you're actually doing compromise, which is actually doubling up on your blessings. And with this, the Rebbe connects it to, we all know that right after Tisha B'Av, we have the holiday of Tu B'Av. And holiday of Tu B'Av was a tremendous holiday, many, many things that happened. One of the things that happened was that we found out then that the people that were destined to die because of the sin of spying out into the land of Israel and complaining and whining and crying and mourning, they stopped dying. We found out on Tu B'Av. What does it say in Shulchan Aruch? There's a specific law starting Tu B'Av, that from starting Tu B'Av, the halacha is moisif. We have to start adding and learning Torah. Why? Because since the nights start getting longer, so you would think, okay, the nights are longer. And we know night is din, night is judgment, night's time to sleep. So less learning, less doing. So on the contrary, the halacha is moisif. We have to add. And the more we add, that will reveal the redemption of Tu B'Av in our lives. So the answer to the question, how can we bring about redemption in our lives? By doing double. Not only doing what we're supposed to do, but by adding and learning Torah, adding and doing mitzvahs, compromising, doing lefnim asher zadim. That will allow us to experience great and beautiful redemption for each and every one of us in our personal and our collective lives. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib, Shlomo ben Yosef, and Rachel bas Lipa. May their souls be elevated by the Torah that we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information, please see our website, chabadswf.org. Have a great and blessed week.